So today I'm going to explain chapter 3.1, an introduction to biodiversity. First of all, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity can be defined as the variety of all life on Earth, and it can be divided either into genetic, species, or habitat diversity. It's important to consider that it isn't constant as it changes over space and time, and that the highest biodiversity is found around the equator, as they have fewer limiting factors, and it's an area with more equitable climate, precipitation, insolation, and suitable temperatures for higher levels of primary productivity, which lead to more abundant plant growth and increased habitats, food, water, and shelter for species to grow and develop. There are several factors that affect biodiversity, such as the age of area, as older habitats tend to have higher biodiversity because a longer time span allows organisms to diversify more and drive greater speciation. Environmental stability, as areas that have experienced environmental disturbances or climatic disturbances which destroy large number of species have less time for colonization and species adaptation. And range of habitats, as it allows organisms to move into new habitats and ecological niches, evolving and driving speciation. A wide range of habitats is due to either altitudinal variation, latitudinal vegetation, variation in rock, etc. So what are the benefits of biodiversity? It could be financial benefits, as goods are extracted, services provided by the ecosystems like clean air, water cycle. It's a getaway from city life. It maintains genetical diversity, which aids evolution, and it provides educational opportunities. So what is species diversity? Species diversity can be defined as a number of different species in a given area, taking into account the richness and evenness of the species. The richness of a species can be defined as a measure of the number of different species in an area, and the evenness can be described as the relative abundance of the species. So, as it can be seen in these two pictures, both communities have the same species richness, but they have different species evenness, as they both have the same number of species, but they have different amounts of each of that species. The Simpson index is what is used to measure the richness and the evenness of diversity in a certain space, in which the D represents the Simpson Diversity Index, the N represents the total number of organisms of all species, and the lowercase n represents the number of individuals of a particular species. So these results help compare the different levels of diversity of each species found. There are also different categories of diversity: the alpha, beta, and gamma diversity. Alpha meaning the species richness inside one habitat, the beta, the species richness between two, and the gamma, the species and habitat diversity in an ecosystem. An easier way to understand it is this way: alpha is within a community, beta can be between different communities, and gamma between a diversity of regions. Then, genetic diversity refers to the variation of genes within the genetic pool of a population of species. This means the means by which that a population can adapt to change. A gene pool is a set of genetic information within a population of a given species or within the species itself, and it's crucial for survival because if one population is wiped out by a disaster, then the other populations will be unaffected and the species will be able to carry on. Each population will have different strengths and adaptability, and low genetic diversity increases in breeding, which makes flaws or disabilities more common. A drop in genetic diversity usually leads to extinction, and it's almost impossible to regain genetic diversity once lost. Finally, habitat diversity can be defined as the range of different habitats within one area. So, how are all these different types of diversities linked to one another? So, a high habitat diversity means that different areas for populations of species, there are many different areas for populations of species to spread into. This separation prompts for greater variation in gene pools, which allows for a higher genetic diversity. High habitat diversity also gives a wide range of spaces for animals to adapt or move into, so there's a higher species diversity. High genetic diversity also means that it increases species adaptability and can lead to speciation and thus a higher species diversity. And a higher species diversity means that there's a higher diversity of plants, so there's a higher habitat diversity. So all of these are linked with one another. And that was chapter 3.1.